This is We the Sales Engineers Podcast, show 128.
Welcome to We the SEs Podcast, the show for sales engineers by sales engineers with your host, Ramsey Majaba.
What's up, SE Nation? Welcome back to another episode. Today, we are not talking about sales engineering, right? Yeah, we're not talking about sales engineering. We are talking about basically fixing up your resume because a lot of people have been affected by this whole pandemic, and we decided to get an expert on and to talk about fixing up resume, fixing up LinkedIn. I first listened to Amanda on Dean Kalawara's weekly LinkedIn, interviews that he does. So if you want to check him out as well, you might want to do that. But today our guest is Amanda Rico, PhD, right?
That's right. Yeah, no, for sure. It was a great conversation, and obviously you're about to all hear it. But like to what you're saying earlier there, Ramsey, it's so important, especially in times like now, to have a good online presence. And we've talked about personal branding in the past as well, but kind of refining exactly what needs to be done, whether it be on a resume or on your profile on LinkedIn, which is essentially your online resume, is really important to really get yourself out there and noticed in a positive way.
Yeah. So, and we discuss in details what should be on the resume, what shouldn't be on the resume. This was a great conversation, and Amanda, she's been doing this for a while. She knows exactly what she's talking about, and not only that, you're going to find out that she is also ahead of the curve in terms of what should be on the resume. And, how about we just listen to the podcast and hopefully you'll get some actionable tips on how to fix your resume on LinkedIn and find a job as soon as possible. If you're in that, and if you're have not been affected and you still want to fix up your resume, you should. I think your resume should always be up to date.
Agreed.
All right. We'll see you after. Good morning, Amanda. Thanks for coming on. How are you?
Thanks for having me. Doing well.
All right, so it is 7:30 in the morning on your end. We really appreciate you joining us so early.
Sure.
Before we get started with the meat of things, can you introduce yourself to the folks listening?
Sure. So I'm Amanda Rico, resume professional, specialize in building resumes, cover letters, career documents, LinkedIn profiles. Really excited to be here this morning. I've been doing this work for about 13 and a half years and really enjoy it. Really enjoy working with professionals. I work primarily with people in oil and gas. That's really kind of where I specialize and where I enjoy really working with people. I love the directness of people and in that industry. And I think it's really fun to, be figuring out, what it looks like to kind of be in that industry or be in similar industries. I know that you guys work a lot with sales engineers and, sales professionals. And I think that that's a really good fit because I work a lot with people in technical sales, people in business development, people at the intersection of that, and just in terms of background, have my BA and MA from the University of Oklahoma in English, and then I have my PhD in English from University of Texas A&M. I know you guys are in Canada, right?
Yeah, we are.
Yeah, I have a really good friend in Toronto. So, Canada's I'm actually from Michigan originally. So
okay.
I'm from the north. Still like to consider myself a northerner, although in Texas, that's, it's neither here nor there sometimes. Sometimes it's more of like, you're a Yankee, whatever. But no, I love, and I love the cold weather. So I kind of miss, being able to look outside and actually see, snow, like proper snow for the holidays.
Well, I tell you what, you and I can switch any day.
Growing up in it, talking to my parents, they were like, yeah, no, we're moving. Everyone else has like dispersed across the US. They're in Florida or in Texas they did not want to stay in the cold weather.
Yep. The shoveling is not always fun.
Shoveling. That was the problem. Yeah. Or like digging your mailbox out, under 6 or 7 feet of snow just to try to get to work. I bet remote is actually like a little bit more of like less stress. You don't have to actually go somewhere.
Yeah. Well, I personally enjoy because I don't have an office. I don't go to the office. I go to customer sites.
Oh.
And so my customers are within, like 20 minutes away from me. So I enjoy that personally.
Oh, that's nice.
I don't know about Benny, but Benny, you're on mute.
I'm on mute. Sorry, wow, it's my mistake. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's one of those things that I just had to grow used to after a while. Like I typically don't like the cold, but then I got into hockey and skiing and things like
Oh, yeah, there
that.
you
And then
go.
at that point, you just gotta love winter. So
It grows
yeah,
on you.
it really does. But at the same time, I had an old colleague that would always say that you can't shovel sunshine. So I mean, definitely
Yeah,
envy that part of it, without a doubt.
I
Well,
guess that's true.
go to the beach. You can shovel some sand if you want.
There
If
you
you if
go.
you really want it.
If you really want to.
So you kind of the resume expert. You're focused on resumes and LinkedIn. Basically. You hear a lot today that resumes don't get you interviews. What's
Who's
your
saying
opinion
that?
about it? Oh, well, they
Yeah,
say
that's not true.
connections get you interviews. In my experience, my
Oh.
resumes have gotten me interviews, but in general, I can't really speak to the greater population, but you can. What do you see
Yeah.
in terms of resumes and how they work? And
Well, I would say that that statement is generally true, right? But it's a combination of both. So it's not necessarily only the resume or only the connections. It's a combination of both. I mean, if we're talking about, kind of maneuvering yourself to a new position, a lot of recruiters, in fact, the majority of recruiters, find people on LinkedIn. So the first thing that they'll do is kind of hunt for them on LinkedIn and then reach out to them, look at their LinkedIn profile, and then reach out to them for a resume. So, it's kind of, it goes hand in hand where if you're connecting with people, I have chatted with a lot of people who have said that their connections and their networking and their hustle are the thing that really got them, the position, and that maybe somebody asked for a resume, maybe they didn't, but that's a very unique type of person. Someone who's already hustling, someone who's already, taking the initiative to get themselves to their next spot. They're still going to need that document eventually, because you don't want to put yourself at a disadvantage of trying to, get so many different opportunities and reach out to so many people and not have a quality document at your disposal. Because someone will ask for a resume. I mean, that's just, someone's not going to know you that well. And even if you have a connection and you have kind of that soft intro or the warm handshake, you're still going to need a document of some kind to introduce yourself to a higher level person who's going to be the decision maker. If you're networking, it may be your friend who has the connection to the VP, but the VP doesn't know you from Jack. So, you got to at least have a document there prepared, to be able to do that intro for you, do that work for you.
It's funny you say that, because the last job that I got, I didn't need an interview resume all the way till I got a verbal offer. After I got a verbal offer, they said, please submit your resume and officially apply for the role.
Oh, okay. Yeah, there you go.
And
It wanted eventually.
Yeah, and then at that point I freaked out. I was like, do I have a good resume?
Right.
Like, I don't want to get the verbal offer and then submit a resume that looks like crap and then have them second guess that. So yeah. I guess at some point people will want it.
It's just such a standard way of doing business. I mean, because they want something on file, right? It goes beyond just, having that intro or having that connection. They need something that goes into the HR file, so that they can prove that you're the right fit, which the resume is supposed to do that. It's supposed to prove that you are the right fit on paper. They can tell that you're the right fit based off of, your personality, how you're going to fit in the culture, which is honestly more important, of course, than the document itself. But the document really does take precedence in terms of kind of solidifying the deal.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So, thank you. So something that you mentioned too, with obviously a combination of both connections and having the document are going to make a difference. But I think you also mentioned, social media, like say LinkedIn, for example. And so I was just curious how, if they have it all, how have resumes changed, or maybe how is the purpose of a resume changed with the introduction of a site like say LinkedIn?
Yeah, so your resume and your LinkedIn need to be congruent. They need to be on the level, right? And this is an issue that I see a lot with prospective clients, is that they'll have one resume that's dramatically different from their LinkedIn. And that is really a red flag to a lot of recruiters. If they see that your resume is really focused on business development and your LinkedIn is focused on a different industry and, technical sales, something, even if it's parallel, they really want to see an exact match because they want that complete package. of a person, and they want to make sure that, you know, everything is the right fit, especially right now during this pandemic when it's so much tougher to get jobs. They are really looking for very direct, very concise fit. And LinkedIn is really the place where you're going to be able to make those inroads. You're going to be able to connect with people in meaningful ways and connect with recruiters. You know, they're going to reach out to you if you have a decently populated profile. If you have your headline set up in a way and your work experience set up in a way that they can find you in searches. And there are ways definitely that I will build clients' profiles to make sure that they get found by recruiters, because there are a lot of best practices. LinkedIn will switch up its algorithm sometimes, and people will end up not getting found as much if you don't have certain things. Like for instance, a lot of people, since they've been let go from their positions, they've been removing their current work experience and now putting just seeking opportunities, or putting seeking opportunities in their headline. Don't do this. Don't do this. Recruiters won't be able to find you. So a best practice is to have your headline be really loaded with like keyword rich terms and phrases that describe what you do. So if you're a business development or a sales professional, you know, award-winning business development manager, you know, and then like that, you could do like a bullet point, or like the vertical dash thing to split it. And then you could say, you know, sales professional. You know, think about different ways that LinkedIn would describe your job, and then kind of insert those types of things, you know, training and mentoring, you know, things that you may have done that are core competencies that you're really good at. Those are going to give a really good overview of you as a professional, and they're going to be able to allow, you know, recruiters to find you easily. Mm-hmm. Same thing with your work experience. If you're seeking new opportunities, that's totally fine, but you have to put in a new work experience that lists out the roles that you're looking for. And that doesn't mean just like putting a giant description. That means looking at specific roles, how LinkedIn would describe them. So if you would put in, you know, type in business development manager into LinkedIn and that would pop up as an option, that's what you want. You don't want to put in, you know, global business development specialist with expertise in blah, 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 because that's not kind of an exact match to what LinkedIn is going to be searching for in the algorithm. So just a little snippet of, you know, kind of LinkedIn best practices if you're on the job hunt.
Okay, just so I understand this, if the person got let go from their job, mm-hmm. they create a new job, like with the title being seeking opportunities or something like that.
So the title wouldn't be seeking opportunities; that would be the company. So you could put seeking new opportunities as the company, because right, you're not at a company.
Yeah.
Right, but your title, your job description has what you're looking for.
Okay.
So it might be business development manager dash sales manager dash,
okay,
something like that.
Yeah. So from like a sales engineer perspective, could be sales mm-hmm. engineer dash technical sales dash solution architect dash. There you go. There's a lot of names for sales engineers, but
yeah. And find the top three. Find the top three, because, you know, it's not all of those titles are going to fit into that right. That little section on the work experience. More will fit in your headline.
Okay.
But in the work experience, you can generally fit three. But what that does is, you know, most recruiters are searching for people based off of their current work experience. Most of them do not click on past work experience. They look on current. And so what this does is it allows recruiters of all kinds, like, you know, from mid-level all the way up to large level recruiting firms that, you know, because most recruiters are in the middle or small and don't have enough money to be able to do really extensive searches. Right. And so this is the way that most of them will start looking for people, is looking at current work experience on LinkedIn and typing in those types of terms.
And when you say headlines, is that the about section?
No, so no. That's the thing right underneath your face.
Okay.
Yeah, so right underneath your profile photo, that thing where you can type in what your current job is, or how to describe yourself. And LinkedIn has actually given us extra characters lately. I can't recall how many characters it is, but it's been extended so that you can actually even describe what you do.
Okay, so if someone goes to their profile, they click on the edit button, and that will pop up, and they can edit that. Okay, wow, that's a lot of information within like the first 5 minutes. So thank you for that.
Sure, yeah.
I always thought of LinkedIn as kind of read more to my resume. So I don't have everything that because I try to stick to 2 pages. I don't know if that's right or wrong. That's a question for you. It is.
Yeah. Well, how many years do you have experience?
Over 10 years.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah,
2 pages is good. If you have 5 or under,
1 page.
1 page.
Okay, so that's why, because I have a lot more. I populated my LinkedIn profile a little bit more than I would in a resume to stick in the 2 pages. I always thought of it as a read more.
It is.
So it doesn't have to be a match in terms of what the content is. It's just what we've done in the past. That's the match. Okay.
So the match should be based off of what you're pursuing, what your target is. Right. So you don't want to have 2 different targets for your resume. And this is why whenever I chat with clients who are looking to switch industries, I always advise them, I'm like, well, just be careful. If you're looking outside of the industry, it can be a little bit tricky because we do need to make sure that your LinkedIn is as targeted as your resume. You can have extra work experience. You generally don't really want to go beyond, 10 to 15 years in your resume, but on your LinkedIn, you can go further. You can include, like kind of what you said, the read more. You can include more detail. You just don't want to be off target, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's actually kind of funny. This kind of reminds me, I don't know if it's entirely appropriate, but like there's that old adage way back in the day about how, dress for the job you want, not for the one that you're in necessarily right now. And this kind of seems like the digital version of that, where even if you're seeking an opportunity, you kind of reverse engineer your profile to make it seem as, or to essentially make it seem as if you're already in that, or otherwise to attract recruiters using whatever keywords to those titles. And it's kind of cool that if you set up your profile to the job that you want to have or towards the industry you want to have, you're more likely to actually get picked up by that job or industry. Yep. So I thought that was very interesting.
It is. And I mean, that's really just kind of how LinkedIn functions, and all of us, people in my industry, resume writers, LinkedIn optimizers, we're all learning every month really right now, because LinkedIn is changing so much since things have gotten so remote and so digital, that it's learning that it has to pick up its game and like start figuring out better ways for people to get found, because so many people are out of work. So that's why you'll see things like that green sash that people have, the open to work. I'm tossed up about that. I personally have advised my clients that it's a personal decision for them to decide to use it, but I generally do not tell them to use it because I want them to stand out and I want a recruiter to see their whole face. I don't want them to get lost in a sea of green sashes. And I think that if they do, which for them, I take care of their LinkedIn profiles. As long as those things are done, they're going to get found by recruiters. They don't need, recruiters going to see that they're open to work because they have the section in there that says seeking new opportunities.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting. I thought LinkedIn had like I don't know what's the right word. It's kind of like a not so blatant tag for that type of thing. It does. Right. So
it has a recruiters only option.
Exactly.
So yeah, you can put the little eye on it and it'll hide it from public view. And that's kind of, I'll do that for some of my clients if that's something that they want, because it is good to have both levels. It is good to have the work experience listed out, and it's also good to have that section at the top. The distinction with only having that section at the top that says recruiters only, or even just the open to work, that entire section right below your profile photo, is that what's been explained to me by a lot of my recruiter connections is that function is actually pretty expensive to be able to access that function. Yeah. So you're going to get higher level recruiting firms that may find you that way, but it's going to be tougher for mid-level and small level recruiting firms to find you if you only have that on, because I think that it requires the highest level of LinkedIn, which is Recruiter Lite. I think is what it's called, because there's Sales Navigator and then there's Recruiter Lite, which is like $119 a month.
Yeah.
And, you know, depending on the size of the recruiting business, they may or may not have the funds to be able to use that function. So you just kind of cover all your bases.
Right.
You know, you want to get found. So
Yeah, especially if you're out of a job. If you're
Yeah.
actually open. If you're trying to hide it from your bosses, that's a
Mhm.
different story. But if you've been affected, then I've communicated with a lot of people who've lost their jobs, and those who come out there and say like, hey, I am looking for a job, they start posting on LinkedIn that I am looking for a job, whatever, they tend to get contacted more than those who are hiding the fact that they're looking for a
Right.
job. So you should be out there, but you're saying specifically for that green sash, like you're saying, correct me if I'm wrong, it will kind of hide you between other people who have the same that's
it's
your
a personal
feeling.
preference, you know. It's, for me personally, you know, and a lot of us are tossed up about this. A lot of, you know, people who do LinkedIn profiles, we're tossed up about this. Some will say absolutely put it on, and others will say, well, it covers up your face quite a bit, and it just kind of blends you in with a whole bunch of other people. In terms of being a human and looking at content on a social media platform, if you're part of, you know, the group of people that, you know, all of you have this green sash, and that tends to be what you're drawn to. Your eyes drawn to that bold color, rather than looking at, you know, the person's face and then their headline. So, you know, for me, just in terms of having done this for a while, I tend to prefer, you know, because LinkedIn is social media, I
Right.
tend to prefer to just have it be very clean and just have your professional headshot and your headline, and, you know, people who are really looking for you, they're going to be able to, you know, to see that you're open to work and things like that. So
In the end, I think it's the person's
I wonder-
responsibility to
Yeah.
experiment, basically,
Right.
try, see different things. Sorry, Benny, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just going to quickly say, maybe to just play devil's advocate, maybe in support of the green or the green sash, at least from my perspective, I thought it came out just after the whole coronavirus started to affect a lot of people. So
Right.
whenever I saw the green sash, in my head anyways, it kind of gave me that preconceived notion of the fact that this person is somebody that has been negatively affected specifically by COVID-19.
Right.
And so as opposed to it just being, you know, somebody's profile that may be looking for work, this person, you know, got affected by this particular circumstance. And so I might think that might actually draw more eyes to these specific people due to the fact that they've been hit hard by this situation. And maybe people might have this intrinsic desire to want to help people that have been put on their, I guess, put into a difficult situation in that way. But you're totally right too, though. Like I also think that it does abstract from the person's face and kind of makes it a little bit less human at the same time, due to that fact. Exactly. And because
I think you have a really good point. Yeah, I think you have a really good point too. I mean, this is a very unique situation and really unprecedented. And I know that LinkedIn was giving an option for a while. I'm not sure if they still are, but that you could actually make a post along with, whenever you add, you know, the sash, it will basically do a post for you of saying, you know, hi network, you know, I've recently been let go due to XYZ, open to new opportunities, would be happy if you'd help. And so that was part of something that LinkedIn had launched as well, you know, that went along with the green sash. And I tend to advise to my clients that if they want to do that, which I do advise those that are actively searching, to make a custom post, you know, really spend the time, maybe not necessarily make it the one that's given to you, really customize it to make it unique. A lot of people have gotten, you know, others to reach out to them whenever they've done that, and they've made it very direct, very personalized, you know, but brief in its own way, you know, to kind of highlight what their core competencies are, what they're seeking, and what their situation is, you know, what's happened. Because yeah, people want to help other people. So
Yeah, I felt from my personal perspective as well, whenever I saw that customized post, it was an automatic like or reshare.
right.
So it does help in that aspect. But from a recruiter, so if someone's actively going out and hustling to find that, maybe that would work best for them. From a recruiter perspective, they might want to look at the face more than the sash. Did I summarize that correctly?
Generally.
Okay.
Yeah, generally. You know, and like I said, it's a personal preference.
Yeah.
You know, some people will disagree with me on that. But I personally tend to prefer, to have just the full face. Because I've just seen it so many times where people have profile photos that are so close, and the green sash is just like cutting their face off, and you can't see the whole person. So, and that's kind of the point of having it, is to see that person.
Right. So just a quick question about, you said less than 5 years, 1-page resume, 10 years, 2-page resumes. I've seen 4-page resumes. I personally hate them when I get that.
Don't
and I
do 4
have
pages.
Okay. Well, people. So I have a forum on We the Sales Engineers, and people have gotten jobs out of 4-page resumes, or maybe despite 4-page resumes. We can't really tell. But the common rule is 1 page, 2 pages, or 1 page. What
I
about
think
infographic?
Infographic.
Infographic resumes.
Yeah. So infographics are great for if you're networking with other people. If you're going to send it directly to a person. Infographic resumes are tough if you are going to be putting it through an ATS tracking system. Okay. So if you're putting it through job applications, you got to be really careful with infographic resumes, because they're going to get really messed up in that scanning software. All your content's going to get jumbled. Or if you have important details in charts or in text boxes, they're not going to process through the scanning software. I mean, I have a specific way that I format all my resumes so that text is embedded on the document. And then I just layer shapes that are transparent over the text so that it looks infographic, and it has a creative style to it, but the text is still embedded on the page. So whenever it gets scanned, everything is going to scan correctly. And if I do have text boxes or anything like that, I don't put important information in it. It's, it's like a recommendation, that kind of highlights the client's, best qualities, or I have kind of a value snapshot of some of their top things that they've done that ATS wouldn't even really be looking to fill anyway.
Why would people do infographics in that case? Like, I personally don't enjoy infographics. I just don't know where to look. When I get a resume, I don't know where to focus. I like the flow of a resume where important things first, and then. So have you seen a benefit to infographics? I guess that's the better question.
I personally don't do very many infographic resumes because I don't think that they're very useful.
Okay.
I mean, I will add graphics to a resume here and there. But having done this for so long and talked to so many recruiters, I have gotten a general sense of what works well. And what works well is spoon feeding someone content. You have to walk them through the content you want them to see. And if you are shooting information all over the place, like what you said, they're not going to know where to look. And they're not going to know how to process the details you have in there. Especially a lot of, my colleagues will use graphs extensively. Graphs, if someone has to sit and process information in a resume, you're losing valuable time for, invisibility, for them to be able to just have it in a snapshot, rather than making them process, okay, what does this graph thing mean here?
So you mentioned that you do put graphs on occasion on your resumes. Like, is that because the customer's asking, that your client is asking you for it? This
is for executives.
Okay.
I mean, I work primarily with senior and executive level clients. So with some of my executive clients who are board members, I will include a graphic here and there to kind of mix it up a bit. And I'll generally only include one, just for visual interest and something that's very direct, basically just kind of like you took revenue from here to here.
Right. Yeah.
Rather than like a super crazy graphic that's giving a whole bunch of detail.
Okay. Nice. I heard you on Dean, I'm going to butcher his last name, Kalawara's.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So that's where I found you. So thanks, Dean, for that.
Yeah.
Check out his podcast. You were talking about objectives versus executive summary. And me being not in that world, I have no idea what the difference is. What's the difference between objective and executive summary, and why would one be better than the other?
Sure. Yeah. So an objective is kind of an antiquated way of, whenever I was first teaching resumes at the university level, the goal was that you put your objective on there so that your employer knows what your goal is. Well, if you're applying for a job, they know what your goal is. They know that you're going for that job, right? So to say my objective is to obtain a position as a business development director at X company, it's just wasted space. You're losing valuable real estate on a document that's already only a page or only 2 pages. So what an executive summary does, as opposed to an objective statement, is that it gives a bird's eye view of you as a professional. So, an executive summary is generally going to be 3 to 4 sentences. You really don't want to go beyond that. If you do, it's generally because you're a 30-year plus person and you have a lot of details. But it should be kind of a snapshot of you as a professional and what you've done. So it should, start off with, award-winning sales engineer with 15 plus years experience executing XYZ, right? And then specializes in, you want to use a lot of very direct, very kind of fluid sounding action verbs so that that paragraph carries a lot of weight. And generally what I'll do is I'm very much into style and how I style the text. So I'll generally have certain portions of each sentence bolded and in italics so that it flows, right? So you're kind of, as you're reading, it's not just like one block paragraph. You're picking up on, award-winning sales engineer, 15 plus years executing, whatever. So your eye is drawn to these areas to bring you down the page.
Right. So I tend to highlight or bold more stuff in my cover letter than my resume. My resume has no bolded stuff, but I would like for you to critique my objective, if you don't mind.
Sure.
To fully utilize my acquired sales engineering, leadership, and entrepreneurial skills to positively impact your organization, the product users. You don't have to critique it. I'm just messing around.
Okay. I think that it's a great start.
Well, that's where it ends, actually.
Oh, okay.
So it's
you got a sentence.
Yeah, I got a sentence out of it.
I mean, I think that it's great that you are, kind of using keyword rich terms, right? I mean, so what I heard from that was that you're using action terms, it had flow to it. I think just kind of draw that out. You don't necessarily have to make it into a, to positively impact your organization. They know you want to positively impact.
I know that was the whole joke. Like, I want a job at your company, so I can do stuff. Yeah, that's the difference between objectives. So the objective is what you want, what I personally want. I guess executive summary is what I can do for you.
Right.
If I want to differentiate that. Okay.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's almost like the objective or the executive summary is almost like it's a pitch. It's like a little elevator pitch, if anything, before you actually dive into the resume.
Exactly.
Quick little question, just to maybe switch gears a little bit. So you did mention that you primarily focus in the oil and gas industry, but obviously I'm sure you've worked with people or with clients rather across other industries as well. Yeah. Are there differences across industries or verticals with respect to how people set up their resumes? Have you seen that, or are they pretty much always following the same formula?
No, I mean, they do tend to follow the same format, but I will generally have kind of different styles based off of the industry. I may highlight certain things more. So, generally I've worked with like healthcare executives and, people in restaurant, the restaurant industry or finance or, all sorts of different, tech, all sorts of different industries. But, generally the rules tend to stay the same. It's more in the presentation that I'll kind of shift and change because, working in the energy sector or the oil and gas sector, you want to be careful about your audience. I mean, the goal is always to tailor that document to whatever audience is going to be reading it. And that can be really tricky. There's a distinction in the tech industry, which is going to be a bit more progressive in terms of what they want to see and the types of, keywords, buzzwords, style that they want to see, as opposed to something like the oil and gas industry that, really wants things to be very direct, bold, concise, not too much color, so there are some distinctions in terms of the approach and the rhetoric, of like how you are creating this document for what audience.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah, because I mean, like you were talking about it earlier, even just with respect to the with like the different blurbs you could have in LinkedIn to always try to tailor things. Even I think one of the articles that you wrote for the Houston Business Journal, same idea. You talked about how tailoring your resumes is super important. And so I was just thinking from a content perspective, never really thought about it from a presentation perspective, but that makes quite a bit of sense as you say it.
In that article you mentioned about beat the system. So in the tech world, there's a lot of different technologies that people could do. And even in the same industry, in networking, for example, where I'm at, there's a billion things that we should know. And what I tend to do is whenever I apply, I take the job description and I highlight whatever technologies that they want me to highlight. I don't like, from your perspective, how would you go about beating that system while still being honest about what you're putting in your resume?
Yeah. No, you're always being honest. When I say beating the system, I don't mean, there's kind of, I think there's generally a kind of a, in terms of terminology, there can be a little bit of a synonymous idea that you're cheating or you're, and that's not necessarily what I mean when I say beating the system. What I mean is building in more content than you might normally. So of course, being honest, being very direct in terms of your background, not hiding things, but making sure that you're building in specific terminology, keywords, phrases that are going to be picked up by the system that have to do with your background and with your specialization. So a lot of people, will want, to kind of phrase things in a certain way. And that may be how they are used to phrasing things, but if you look at the job description, they may want it to be phrased differently.
Right.
So what I mean by beating the system is making sure that you're looking at those job descriptions and really honing in on what that job description says. If they're using specific terminology, you should be using it too. And that's part of beating the system is, combining what you've done and what you have experience in and background in with how it should be phrased based off of your industry and what employers are going to be looking for. Does that make sense?
Yeah. To clarify, I wasn't implying anything by that. It's just some people, some people think that, let's say, for example, one of the skills is driving a car. Mm-hmm. Just an example. And some people think that my job wasn't to drive a car. I know how to drive a car, but it wasn't to drive a car. Right. So I'm not going to put that in my resume. And but in my opinion, you should put it in your resume because you know how to do it. Right. It wasn't your job, but you still know how to do it. And it's a way to beat the system because once you get the interview, you can actually explain a little bit more about what you can do, and you have other skills that would help the company in your role. That's I'm just trying to help people overcome their fear of I'm not a perfect in everything. So just beat the system, like be honest, don't lie, but still put the information out there.
Right.
Just to clarify, that was taken the wrong way. I did not mean that at all.
Oh, no. And I wanted to clarify too, because I was like, I know that there's a lot of discussion about, especially with ATS tracking systems, beating the system. And, and to be honest, no one can ever completely beat the system. These tracking systems, it's nearly impossible unless you spend hours, going in and curating your resume for each and every job description. There's a point to where you just need to, have your basic template of, what your overview of your experience, your competencies, and then, take no more than 30 minutes, 20 to 30 minutes tailoring your resume to that job. If you take more than that, it probably means that that's not the right fit for you, and that you might want to consider that you're creating another resume for, that specific type of job. And I see this a lot with people who are industry switching. They all kind of want to use the same resume for everything. And that creates some problems because again, that resume needs to be targeted to a certain audience. And if that audience doesn't understand the terms in your industry, they're immediately not going to see you as the right fit. This happens a lot with people transitioning out of the energy industry. They will be using terms and phrases that don't make any sense to, people outside of the industry. And I'm sure tech has a lot of similar where you're using a lot of acronyms or phrases or locations or, stuff that just doesn't make sense to people outside of that.
it doesn't make sense to some people inside of it too.
Yeah.
Like right here.
Yeah, different silos.
No,
Vinny,
that's so
you had a question.
I do, yeah. So you've been super great with just letting us know all sorts of different things we should do to make our resumes better, to make ourselves just more attractive to recruiters, whether they be just through a resume or through online or any combination of. And you have kind of alluded to some mistakes as well that people sometimes make. Maybe they don't tailor their resumes, or maybe they do have too much alphabet soup or too much jargon in there that's specific to an industry that they're not applying for. What are some other common mistakes or maybe misconceptions or anything else that you see that if you that you wish you could correct, or rather that people should be correcting more often?
Yeah. So jumping right into work experience. Don't do this. You want to you only get 7 to 10 seconds for, catching someone's attention. And if you just jump right into work experience, especially if you're looking to switch industries, and the first thing that they see is that, you have a background in this industry that is not the industry that you're applying for, they're immediately going to be like, okay, no, they're not the right fit for this. But if you soften them up by making your resume really top heavy and having that executive summary, first of all, starting with a really bold heading in terms of, you have all your important details up top, and then you have something listed like, let's see, like senior sales engineer. And then below that, you have something like 15 plus years leveraging, sales expertise in blah, 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 executing blah, 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 right? So like kind of a little blurb.
Yep.
Or you could do core competencies, like 3 core competencies of what you're really good at. Revenue growth, 15% revenue growth, or something like that really highlights something bold up top. So they see immediately, okay, this is what they're good at. This is industry wide, right? I mean, everyone's going to understand revenue growth. Everyone is going to understand, what it means to be good at sales in terms of securing, however many clients or multi-million-dollar contracts. So you want something up top that really is broad enough to catch any audience's attention, to show the value that you bring to any company. And then, having your executive summary, going into your skills. If you're in tech, including your technical software competencies is really important. If you're really good at Python, if you're really good at AutoCAD, if you're really good at, whatever else you have competencies in, putting those up top rather than burying those at the bottom of your resume are going to be really important, because a lot of people get hired based off their technical competencies. And you want that to be just eye candy, like just up top, what are your skills? What are your hard skills up top? And then some key achievements. I'll generally include roughly 3 to 4 key achievements. Kind of just one-liners that have, check marks to show action, right? Like these things were executed, these things were done. And then only then do you get into your work experience, because at that point, someone has seen the value that you bring, and they're going to want to see your background. You've invited them, almost like a pitch. You've invited them at that point to look at what else you have to offer. And at that point, they're going to want to.
So what you're saying to me is that I have a lot of work to do on my resume.
Well, I haven't seen your resume, but
believe me, you don't want to see it. Based on what you just said. Well, like, it's funny. Like, my resume is, when I apply for jobs, it gets me interviews.
Right.
It's not perfect. I could do a lot of work to get it too perfect. And it seems that there is a lot of work that I can do to get it too perfect. But sometimes even imperfect resumes get you jobs.
Yeah.
But in a competitive environment like today, you might want the edge in perfecting your resume if you're looking for a job. So
yeah, sure.
So I have a lot more questions. We didn't talk about cover letters. We didn't actually discuss LinkedIn, but we're running out of time, and I want to be respectful of your time, especially at 7:30 in the morning. Just two more questions. Is there a book or resource that people can go look at in order to perfect their resume?
Yeah. So 2.
Even if you
actually
have yours.
Oh no, I don't have a book yet.
Yet.
Nothing
Okay.
with that yet. No, but actually something very, very simple, Resume for Dummies.
Okay.
Actually a really great resource. It's like $12 on Amazon. I always suggest this to anyone looking to write their own resume. I'm part of the organization, the president of the organization that I'm a part of, Career Directors International. The president actually wrote that book and collaborated with a lot of other top resume writers
Okay.
across the US and in Canada. Canada actually has a lot of really awesome resume writers too. And so, yeah, resume writing for dummies, and an online resource. One of the best you can go to is called jobscan.co.
Okay.
So job scan, like you're scanning a
Yep.
document, .co. That is awesome. For those who are worried about ATS tracking, you're able to actually upload your own resume and then upload the job description, and you'll be able to see if it's what kind of match it is in ATS.
Okay.
So
Yes.
they give you 5 scans for free, I think, to start out with, and it's a really great resource. I mean, a lot of us pros use it because it's just a really awesome tool.
Nice. All right. Last question of the day. If
Sure.
people want to reach out to you and connect with you, where can they do that?
Oh, LinkedIn is the best resource to connect with me on. You know, my name is Amanda Rico, PH.D. And I'm sure that, you know, you guys can share
We'll-
that if you'd like.
We'll link that. We'll link that in the show notes for this podcast.
Awesome.
All right, well, thanks a lot, Amanda. We really appreciate your time.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me, guys.
It was definitely our pleasure. So have a great day. We'll talk soon then.
Thanks, you too.
All right, guys. Well, that's the show. Thanks, Amanda, for coming on. We really appreciate all the input that you provided. This was great. A lot of good information, which hopefully will help a lot of people right now. What do you think, Benny?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I definitely learned a lot myself. Resumes are so hard sometimes because like there's a billion different templates out there. You get all this like, I don't know. Personally, like when I first made my resume when I was still in high school looking for my first job, I put it all together and it got me a job. And I thought, oh, great, this is what a resume is supposed to be like. And then in every subsequent, I guess, year that I lived, I suppose, or every time I ever learned more and more about a resume, I always keep on understanding why what I did before was maybe not so good. And this is another good example of that to help me kind of refine myself even further, to really understand kind of what happens on the back end and what's happening in the eyes of a recruiter when they're looking at a resume. And so hearing ways to optimize that in general is good. Like optimize the performance of my resume, whether it be in the eyes of a person or otherwise by a system is good. So I love this conversation.
Yeah. Generally speaking, a resume, like if you're getting jobs out of your resume, the resume is fine, right? The whole point of the resume is to get you a job. But when the world gets competitive, like the way it is right now, like with this whole pandemic and lots of people who lost their jobs, you want to find every edge that would differentiate you. And, you know, I always like to know that the listeners of We the SEs can actually differentiate themselves over non-listeners, although I'd love to help everybody, but like, let's start with the family, right?
Exactly.
So yeah, no, thanks, Amanda, again for coming on. Thanks for all the input, all the information, and hopefully we can use this to get some jobs.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
What about your experience, if you don't mind me asking? I mean, you've obviously like been around for a little bit longer, in like just in the professional space. Have you found a lot of I don't know, have you found a lot of like variety, I suppose, in the resumes that you sent out to your different prospective companies, or do you find that you stuck to a template and kind of build upon it?
No, my resumes have changed a lot. They used to be like what I did on a day-to-day basis. I did this, I did that, and now they've changed to more to what I've done for the company. Like, what's my net positive on the company, right? So, because you know, you can put the tasks that you do day to day, which are pretty much on the job description. You're going to be talking to customers. You're going to be doing this. You're going to be doing that. But what does all that mean in the end? It's kind of like doing a demo. Like, so what? How does that affect you? Oh, I hit my quota 5 times out of 6. Right? That's good. Good. We want someone who hits their quota. I have won back 3 customers. That's good. We lost customers and Ramsey helped us win them back. That's good. We can use that in our company as well. So it's changed a lot from task driven or function driven to benefit driven. Right.
Amazing. Very nice. Yeah, no, that's a good piece of insight. I like that.
Right. Well, I guess we're going to end it here. Thanks for asking me that question. That was I never thought about that before. I've actually never analyzed how my resumes have changed. It's just, sometimes you take things for granted. But so thanks for that. And for Benny, this is Ramsey, and we're signing off.